The Nordic standard we want to see is controlling our thighs to the bench without our abs touching, and then being able to contract glutes first and then spring up like Marty St. Louis. But this scales depending on the equipment you have. If you don't have something to elevate your hip, or you don't have an inclined Nordic bench, then we can bend the hip and then start to lower. The only problem with this is that this position here is where most ACL tears occur. So the best thing that we can do is actually have a Nordic bench, or to elevate our hips so we do get that position here when ACL tears are most likely to happen. Nordic benches cost less than most gym equipment, and yet not a single gym that I've been to in the UK has them. And you can see how much easier this is to get into this end range position without causing too much stress. So I could literally have my nan do something like this where it's so inclined and it not hurt her. The Nordic curl is a long range exercise, so it's hardest in this end range position where we are lengthening out those hamstrings, in that position where the ACL might tear. And if you look at a normal hamstring curl, the hardest portion is this up here where we're squeezing the muscle, and down here we can sit here all day. And that's the difference between the two. The hamstring curl is going to be much easier, and that is definitely a necessity that we need to start building first before we get to this kind of Nordic. But the real bulletproofing in the ligaments comes from that Nordic because of that end range position. An example for myself, 2 years ago when I had chronic knee pain, I couldn't even hold this for 2 seconds without falling like a sack of potatoes. And now I can just control these Nordics fully and then bounce up and have no issues. I literally done a leg day yesterday, and now I'm here repping these out. And not only am I way more protected than I used to be, but I'm more athletic, I'm faster, because this force here, when we're sprinting through and we're coming up like a knee flexion. So the stronger we are in knee flexion, especially in the Nordics, the faster we're gonna be, as long as the rest of our body is balanced. And you have example on example, you have Marty St. Louis being the only one in his gym to be able to do this kind of form. Probably the craziest speed transformation in the league. He was like 35 years old, smashing records. You have Jonathan Edwards, who done Nordics 1 time a week for years. You have Cheetah in the NFL, who's so fast that can just bang out these Cheetah Nordics here. You have example after example of how good this exercise is for you, but you have to make sure that you have the regressions. The reason most people can't get into a Nordic like this is because the ligaments in their knee aren't strong enough. So the ACL attaches from the back of the thigh bone to the front of the shin bone, and the hamstring attaches down here in a similar way. So how we actually get people to being able to do the Nordics in our system is first building the ligament and tendon strength in the knee with deep knee bends, building short range strength with hamstring curls, and then 2 up, 1 down hamstring curls to focus more on eccentric strength, while at the same time lengthening out the tissues in the back of the knee with elephant walks. And eventually that can get us to the point where we can start lowering on the Nordics. And I don't want people to start coming up for a while, because most of that gain is going to come from the eccentric. We know that most injuries happen in deceleration, and we know that eccentric strength, especially in the hamstrings, is super important, being able to decelerate without any injuries. So that's why this Nordic is so good. It's pure eccentric strength. Who can hold this? Thighs to the bench, no abs. Boom! And it took me ages to get there. You have Adam Archuleta, who had a 6-year training plan from his trainer Jay Schroeder, and the Nordics were a staple. He had one of the biggest athleticism transformations as well. And I'm not saying this is the be-all end-all. We build our body in balance. The hamstrings other functions, hip extensions, so we still build strength through the hips and the hamstrings with stuff like full stretch RDLs. We build our quad size lows. We build our tips and calves. We build everything in balance in our system. But we see with our clients over and over, the ones that can do these Nordics, hold them all the way down, and then eventually start repping them out, are the ones that are going to be less likely to be re-injured when they go back to sport. The Nordic curl is a game changer, and the reason I'm telling you and I'm laying out in a video like this is for 2 reasons. One is that this has changed my life personally when I went from chronic knee pain to being more athletic faster than ever, but only with the regressions and progressions, doing everything smartly and only handling the level I can. That's the first reason. And the second reason is then to start getting these in gyms. If we had these in gyms and more people knew about the regressions and progressions, I think as athletes would be so much more protected. There's only studies on this going on the way down and holding it like this. There's no studies on our standards where there's 5 first and then we're exploding through the glutes with perfect form. There's no studies on that. But the studies that we do have, just on holding the way down like this, there's 40% reduce of hamstring injuries. So if we can use the new Nordic curl to reduce hamstring injuries as well as reduce ACL injuries, the world is going to be a much more pain-free and better place.